You texted me that I would need to give you some context for all the like Jewiness, and I was just like, dude, I'm like a
Shit,
terrible Jew. The
that
most
don't.
Jewish thing I've done in years is watch The Fablemans during Hanukkah.
Hello and welcome to No Pundit Intended, where we put the pun in punditry. Well, if there is such a thing. The puns are bad, but the punditry, I promise, is pretty badass. I'm Virat and I'm joined by Ron. We have just, both of us, come out of Zombieland. No, I mean Sundance, actually. But so we both seen Sundance, and I thought, you know, what better time than to talk about the first major festival of the year. It's always been, I think Sundance kind of sets the tone for what's to come, and it's always for a cinephile and us cinephiles, I guess, wherever in the world, we kind of try to eke out what the pulse of movies is going to look like for the rest of the year. And if a Sundance lineup is bad, we're just like, oh, kind of fearing the worst. Does it mean that the movies are going to be bad this year? And if the Sundance lineup is pretty good, like in 2023, wow, what a lineup. You're like, I think it's going to be a pretty good year. So, what do we think, Ron? What are the initial kind of thoughts about what this year's Sundance brought for you? Because you were there in person, you braved the cold.
It actually wasn't that cold there. I'm feeling a lot colder back home in New York. Yeah, the 2023 Sundance lineup was pretty exceptional. I'm not sure it led to a strong year. I know a lot of people think that 2023 is a, an outstanding year for film. I
Ouch!
slightly disagree.
Shots fired already. God, ouch!
I am not a
Daggers through the heart. Oh,
I'm not a Past Lives fan, but three titles from Sundance 23 ended up on my top 10 of the year. Fair Play, You Hurt My Feelings, and Passages. That list would have also included A Little Prayer, had SPC done the right thing and released it in time to campaign David Strathairn and Celia Weston for the Oscars.
I feel like you were not listing names of movies, but just actually listing, gripes that you have with people. You hurt my feelings in some kind of past lives, and we'll go through these passages of time. So this,
Now work in a little prayer.
working. Yeah, well, I
Now,
have
well, no, but now if you got to keep it going
you hurt my feelings.
because I don't like Past Lives. Yeah.
No,
Oh well, get
because
over it.
it's okay. I can always wish a little prayer that you do eventually.
Okay. It's not going to happen. I don't care if Christopher Nolan says it's not just one of his favorite recent films. I don't care if it's one of
Right,
the best
right.
films of the decade. I'm just
If
not a person
if
who's going to
Christopher
ever be
Nolan
impressed by Past Lives.
if Christopher Nolan says it's one of the best films of whatever, then come on, Nolan Army.
Then the conversation ended, right?
Yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
he's about to win an Oscar, so I guess his say is final.
Nice to see, I think, Sundance favorites and Sundance alumni almost making a comeback. Richard Linklater, for example, has been, massive for Sundance, one of the best known alumni from Sundance in terms of, and he has Hitman this year's Sundance. So
It didn't premiere at Sundance, an
it didn't
important
premiere. I
note,
mean,
but yes,
yeah,
it made a
played,
stop there.
made a stop there, and I guess it.
Also, Steven Soderbergh, right? Back with Presence, also a big sort of
You
Sundance
mean Soderbergh
alumni.
made his presence felt, right? Okay.
We did promise to put the puns in punditry. So
Could couldn't resist.
we have a good one loaded.
Well done, well done. People who don't know what that
Oh,
A
that
reference.
wasn't even intention. That was not a reference to the movie Good One. I just meant we have a good pun, but I get
There
there you
we
go.
go. There we go.
I can actually sincerely say that no pun was intended in that case.
Great.
Look,
Good title drop.
with generic titles, you're just inevitably going to
It's
run into
okay.
a pun.
I will be exhibiting forgiveness for your mistake, Ron. It's fine. Ron attended part of the festival in person and part of it online, and we ended up watching the same number of films. So clearly, Ron, you failed because you could have just stayed online and watched the same number of films. So, not a smart cookie there. But if you do want to watch Ron's opinions on the in-person part of the festival, as Ron is walking about giving his movie opinions and doing his thing, you can watch it there. There's going to be a link in the description. But we're going to jump in to the main part of our discussion, which is the online films we watched. And I noticed a very interesting theme, I guess, running through so many of the films that we watched online, which is, oh my God, families are horrible, right? Like, so much family trauma. Goodness me. Uh,
Hey, family trauma.
I know, I know. It's just like I I get it, write what you know, make your first film, and Sundance, a lot of indies, a lot of filmmakers making their first films. Seems like we're all kind of really messed up. Because you look at so many
Most,
films,
I think
right?
artists probably are, right? The people who make movies tend to, I don't know, that's a generalization, but I'm not surprised that many of the people who, in
Yeah,
fact, actually very specific to what we're discussing now about like the connection between trauma and art. I think the movie from this year's lineup that most emulate that is Exhibiting Forgiveness with Andre Holland and Anjanou Ellis Taylor. Should
yeah,
maybe we can discuss that movie
yeah,
first?
yeah. It's a lovely little film, which I think for me was more evocative than I was expecting. There are other films that explore similar ideas, but Exhibiting Forgiveness for me felt like a wave, a tsunami wave, in the sense that it is kind of fast and loose, and it's probably not as refined as some of the other films in the lineup exploring similar ideas. But I think for me, that worked in the film's favor because there is an immediacy and a rawness to the overwhelming nature of the film that really takes you in, and you feel some of the pain that Andre Holland's character is experiencing in the film, and basically how that pain is still very unprocessed. It's beautiful in the sense the film has this visual language and texture where a lot of the painting, a lot of the artwork shows up to communicate through visual language some of the unspoken feelings about uh, the main characters and what they're feeling very internally. It's a very internal film as well from that perspective. Uh, I really liked it, and I felt that I had to sit down with the film, which isn't something I feel a lot whenever a film kind of explores themes which, on the surface, have been done quite a lot. So this is not the kind of film where you feel like, oh, this is entirely new. But the
Breaking
treatment
new
of this,
ground, yeah.
exactly, but the treatment of this film felt so raw and almost as if I was peeking into someone's personal life where I was allowed to peek into their personal life. And I felt that I was doing something wrong. It felt a bit of voyeuristic tendency to the film where you felt like I'm peeking behind the curtain to someone's inner soul and I shouldn't be here. I feel like, I should step out of the room and I'm here and I'm put in this position where this person probably should know how to disguise their feelings a bit better. And I think part of this film, because of how grief manifests for the main character so vividly, it felt to me that even though the overall structure was a bit fast and loose and it doesn't come together structurally neatly, that still worked in favor of the film because the emotions carry through, and they kind of work through like a peak and trough, and it is a kind of wave-like structure where the emotions when they peak, they really get a hold of you, and then they kind of subside, and they peak again, and they subside again, and there is this beautiful tension between a father-son relationship, which is what the crux of the film is. It is about uh, an abusive father and a son trying to basically move on from that relationship and trying to find a way to forgive his father and what that means, even forgive himself for what that relationship
Without
was.
sacrificing. There's a great line that we've talked about in our private conversations. I forgive you for the past, but that doesn't give you any kind of rights to my future.
Exactly. And I think that is the beautiful aspect of this film. I was really afraid when I saw the film that maybe this film is going down this kind of blanket forgiveness path, and this idea of forgiveness is going to be that I forgive you for everything, and it's going to wash away all your sins and everything that you've done. But the film
But
doesn't
it
do
finds
that.
a nice middle ground where
Guys.
it gives the protagonist room to forgive, mainly for his own peace of mind. He's someone who experiences panic attacks.
Yeah.
That unprocessed trauma is really bleeding into his family life. His wife is played by Andra Day from the United States versus Billie Holiday. Um, he has a son. By the way, also a really lovely line that I think nicely complements the one we just mentioned about the past and the future. Um, when his mother, played by Anjanou Ellis Taylor, is telling him, um, I don't remember the exact moments leading up to it. I think it's when they're speaking in near the basketball court, and she says something about like fathers and sons and like the stories of their relationships. And Andre Holland says something along the lines of the only father son relationship or the only father son story I'm interested in is the one between me and my son.
Yes. So I
And I
think
just thought I think that actually, even though the other line is probably deeper, for some reason, that's the one that floored me.
interesting you bring up that line because actually you do see that his relationship, Andre Holland's relationship, that is, with his father, Laurent, is actually impacting Andre Holland's relationship with his own son, because that is seeping into that unprocessed trauma is actually kind of a danger to his own son and the relationship there, because he is getting panic attacks and he can't control what he's doing in
He's
those panic
waking up in
attacks.
the
Well,
middle of the night and kind of absent-mindedly punching the wall.
yeah, basically being violent, and that is a scary situation to be in, especially when you have
Well, to
a
be
young
specific,
child.
not toward his
Not towards
family.
anybody.
He's
Yeah,
never
yeah,
violent toward his family. Yeah.
exactly. No, no. But the thing is, like, he's just behaving violently in terms of, because he is in an uncontrolled rage, which kind of acts out. So it is not directed at anybody. It's just directed where anybody in the vicinity of that violence could actually become a target, which is unintentional. So it's interesting how the film found a way to find a language to communicate that even though you feel like you want to move on, you can't really move on until you process certain past traumas to really come to terms with that. And you can't heal properly because no matter how much you want to run away from that, the past finds a way to catch up with you. And
And the
that's,
final shot, I think, emphasizes that quite nicely as well. We won't reveal what it is, but it
yeah,
does involve Andre Holland's artwork and in a particular way that he modifies it to
yeah,
almost literally take himself out of the memory. Even well, anyway, we'll leave it at
yeah.
that.
I mean,
And
the
we watched it.
artwork is one part of it. I do want to also mention the other great aspect of the film, which I think is central to how you experience it, especially the calmer moments. It's the jazz score. Oh my goodness.
Oh yes,
The
excellent score,
beautiful.
excellent score.
If there is a music sort of element that can punctuate how you should feel about a film without it being too didactic, this film is it. It's perfect. it really, I mean, it does guide you. I'm not saying that it doesn't. I mean, I knew what it was doing, but it does it in such a subtle and beautiful way that you can't help but be carried away by it. It's really illustrative of how the right music can really accentuate the emotional elements and emotional kind of beats of a narrative. It's beautiful. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think that was actually what struck me, right? Well, no, the wide shots I thought were impressive. Again, the texture, there's this beautiful kind of glow that occasionally reminded me of moonlight. Uh, I don't mean to
It's a
reference
beautiful
moonlight
it's a
because
beautiful
of
looking
Andre
film.
Holland, but
Yeah.
it's just that there's that one connection, take Andre Holland out of it. But yeah, no, it's a beautiful looking movie. And then what really struck me was the music early on, and I think that's what emotionally engaged me before anything else about the film did. We
And
watched.
that's not something that I think we discuss enough. I think good musical scores are hard to kind of talk about without it feeling like they're being didactic. And I think this film had such a good balance. So I wanted to specifically highlight that because, other things are great and they often get a mention. And the musical score kind of gets by the wayside a bit, but no, it's beautiful.
I watched Exhibiting Forgiveness right after In the Summers, which actually
Oh.
won the, I think, not the dramatic jury prize, but the audience prize, right?
No, no,
I should probably pull that up.
it's the other way around. The audience
It won the
Three
dramatic
bells.
jury prize. Okay. In the Summers, I thought I like
I mean,
Exhibiting Forgiveness.
I
I
mean,
think it's an impressive movie, but
what
In the Summers is excellent.
what a great double for you, though, right? I mean, abusive parent one, escape one of them, and then line up in another
Yeah.
abusive parent. So this is an abusive parent double, which is, I'm not going to say wholeheartedly recommend this double to you guys. These are two great films. Probably don't watch them back to back because they're going to traumatize the shit out of you. Honestly, they did to me. And so I'll hate you, Ron,
I
because
think In the
you told
Summers is a
me
lot more effective.
it is, but it was also the cumulative effect of watching two abusive fathers over like 3.5 hours. And I'm just like, I don't need to be near a father figure for a while. No, let me get out of the house. I want to leave the house for a bit. I want to take a walk. That was what I was
Yes, so
feeling.
sorry. The audience award went to Dee Dee. The jury prize went to In the Summers. And I think we've had bad like winners before. I think In the Summers is excellent. Like
It's not
I
an
was
ex. It's
watching
not just
it.
excellent. It's also like it's technically excellent. It's narratively beautiful. It's emotionally. It's an accomplished movie. It shouldn't be a Sundance. It's that good. Sorry, is that a controversial take to make? It's too good
Yeah,
to
no, I
be
don't agree
Sundance.
with that. I
Okay.
think there have been I mean, like look at some of the movies that have come out of Sundance just in recent years, right? I mean, launched Jordan Peele's directorial career, premiered Get Out, launched Ari Aster with
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Hereditary,
Yes.
Promising Young Woman, The
Okay.
Father, I mean,
I mean,
Coda, right?
promising young woman kind of just proves my point. But anyway, but
But
fair
I'm
enough.
just saying, no, I don't think that if it's a slight
I
against a
was,
movie to premiere
I
at
was,
Sundance. And in fact, I think In the Summers is everything pretty appropriate for a Sundance lineup.
I was being facetious. No, I don't mean that. Don't come at me with your trolling comments. I don't mean Sundance only does mediocre indies. That's just the general perception. I was ribbing down. It's sarcasm. Oh my God, it's so hard. Sorry, I have to now explain myself, and that's not a good position to be in. I love you, Sundance. Thank you for allowing me to watch films. Sorry, back to the summers.
Yeah, so In the Summers is it's it it's about two girls and their relationship with their father. It's specific. The chapters are divided between the summers that they spend with him. The arc encompasses their childhood through their young adulthood, and I just thought it was. remarkable in several ways. For starters, the performances all around. I couldn't even. I had some. I did ultimately pick my favorite performance from the movie, but it was hard. I kind of just wanted to
I
honor
couldn't.
the ensemble.
I
Yeah,
couldn't. I've done that.
because
I've
it's so
cheated.
remarkable. Like
I picked the ensemble.
between the chapters, it's kind of incredible just how like each actress can continues the or develops rather the groundwork laid by the actors in the previous chapter. Um, it's a it's also very psychologically specific. I think many movies like this about trauma are just sort of general, but their father is crappy to them, and that's another thing. Flawed parents, it's like they're either wonderful with a couple of emotional instabilities or they're terrible. And I think this character, played by the Puerto Rican rapper Residente, he he is the filmmaker isn't afraid to show that affection and hostility can closely coexist within the same person. He is quite awful, but he's
Yeah.
also, kind at times. And it's
Yeah.
not that they
It's not
ever
even.
have this cathartic blow up. It's just kind of like, I mean, people who come from abusive households will probably know this. Something happens, and then the next day you just kind of put it behind you and,
As if it
have a
never
lovely
happened.
afternoon.
Yeah.
It's awful, but I mean, movies aren't necessarily supposed to show us the way life should be.
I
And
agree.
in the summers, I think it's just a very, very felt and accurate depiction of what it's like to grow up in a household where love and resentment mingle. Um,
The other thing I just want to like carry off from that because and expand on that point.
and then, yeah, just before we move on to the next movie, remind me, I have one more thing to say
Yeah, yeah,
about
of
In the
course, of
Summer.
course. No, no, no. It's gonna continue on because this is such an exceptional film. We the thing that really took me was this film. Like we're talking about specificity, and I want to revisit that point, which is the dad is not blanketly awful in the same way to his two daughters. He's very specifically
That's what I wanted
awful.
to say. We see how the girls are individually affected by it, right? One
Yeah,
daughter he sort of belittles for not being smart enough. The other daughter he kind of resents for almost being too smart.
yeah.
And
That's like
in
you
their
can't win.
adulthood,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can't win
And
either way.
and when we catch up with them as adults, um, the different effects are very apparent, right? They're not just blanketly traumatized. It's not just like just a sort of a general depiction of a fucked up childhood. We see how one daughter is affected in her own way, and similarly how the other one has also been
Yeah,
shaped by her father's treatment of her.
I think the real strength of this film is not just showcasing how trauma can manifest very differently, even though you're subjected to the same environment. It'll shapes you very differently into very different personalities, but also how when you are actually experiencing it at the time, so much of that in the moment doesn't feel like someone's crossing your boundaries. It's really interesting that the initial kind of segments of the film, you don't notice these microaggressions in the way that, when you revisit them more and more, each subsequent trip becomes, I guess, even more volatile. It's probably the right word for it. And you kind of become slowly more self aware about your own trauma. It's like, oh, this is actually not good. Someone is actually overstepping my boundaries. I didn't realize that. It's actually, the film actually does it so well to showcase that people aren't always aware when, you know, things that are not supposed to be good are being done to
Yeah,
them.
especially kids, right?
Yeah. And
And as they get older, I think the, I mean, yes, as they get older, the treatment kind of worsens, but also I think there may be something in the screenplay where it's like we're allowed to perceive certain things that were probably present in that early first chapter, but that were almost as if we're in the
yeah,
children's shoes. We kind of don't notice. We get hints of it,
exactly.
but we
You
see their father the way they do.
It's almost a revisionist take, right? You revisit everything that you saw earlier, and you can look at it from a different lens because you're like, oh, so that's what was happening because now you know what happened later on. So you can get the full extent of that kind of impact. So in that sense, structurally, the film is very appropriately dense and impressive because it packs so much in. But also, I don't want to make people think that this is a film that's you know, doesn't have the visual grammar to communicate some of these things because some of these things are communicated through. I mean, I don't want to pick on particular shots, but there are some beautiful shots that communicate how the effects of that trauma trying to cope with it, but they can't. And the trauma kind of swells up and they are just overwhelmed by it. And it's so beautifully captured. For example, there is a scene in the bar, which you pointed out as well, Ron, where this, she's sitting down and then
Oh,
oh my
that
goodness.
shot has engraved itself in my
Oh,
mind. She sits down and takes a shot, and when she we see her throw the shot back, and as her face sort of faces the camera again, a single tear falls. And I know when you describe that, it sounds kind of maudlin, but it's just so delicately captured. I
and
love that shot. Yeah.
and that's the thing, right? It's about the sincerity towards the story that you want to tell. And I think every choice that the actors make in this film, every choice that's made from a cinematography point of view, every choice that's made from a structural point of view is in service of telling this very particular, very focused story. At no point did we waver into any other tangent. Everything kind of adds up in a beautiful way towards this one focal point in terms of this driving endpoint. So yeah, it's a very accomplished film. It's really powerful, very visceral, and as a double, Existing Forgiveness in the Summers just kind of knocked the wind out of me. I had to take a
Yeah,
break after that. I had to take a break.
it is I was not expecting to like it so much. I thought and
Very
almost immediately it captured me. And then I was expecting it because I had heard a couple of from, some friends of ours. I had heard a less than enthusiastic review. And so I was sort of waiting for the quality to dip, but it never did. It's such an impressive movie. I loved it.
I'm really happy. I mean, such a deserving winner. I'm so happy it won. I hope it travels to other festivals as well. I think it'll do really well. Let's move to other parts of the family or other histories of families, which may be brief, you know, depending on how our families go. Because we're on the subject of families, I feel like we should cover all our families. And this is could
Sure,
be a brief
sure.
history of both our families. If you don't know, I'm trying to work in upon about a brief history of a family, which, ironically was not a brief film. It's pretty long. And
I think it kind of felt long, but no, it's a little over 90 minutes, I think.
fair enough. The log line that I want to give about this movie is think Saltburn, but make it gritty. I think that's what
I don't get that. I know you said it before. I disagree. I don't like that because also Saltburn is so derivative. It's like, why are we making Saltburn like the template for other? I actually saw another movie that we'll talk about later. You didn't, I did. I think that makes a more appropriate pairing with Saltburn, but fine, continue.
okay. The I
So I'm
mean,
not looking forward to the next few years of things getting compared to Saltburn when Saltburn really doesn't break much new ground.
think Saltburn, but this. Think Saltburn, but that. Think Saltburn, but sweet. Think burn. But anyway, with salty. Okay. The only reason I mentioned Saltburn is because this film, Brief History of a Family, is also about class warfare. No, it's basically about
And
uh,
Saltburn was the first movie to address class warfare.
ooh, I want to insidiously insert myself into a rich family. Oh wait, is that a part of Parasite? Oh no, it's not. It's Saltburn. Oh, good to know. the So, brief history of a family. We get to know there is an affluent Chinese family and a well-to-do young boy befriends another boy who's kind of mysterious. We don't know much about his past or where he comes from, and they become friends. And yeah, his this affluent family really takes a liking to this young boy, and slowly but steadily we realize that this young boy from another world has dubious intentions and wants to do things to this affluent family who just wants to adopt him and take care of him and do, and just want,
Important to note, this is all happening against the backdrop of a post one child
yeah.
policy China. That it's important because this relatively affluent family, I don't think they're quite affluent, but they're like upper middle class.
I mean,
They
they
feel
listen, the dad listens to Bach in his study. What? That's like,
well. Do you remember that he actually said that listening to classical music was his way of infiltrating like a particular world?
I
So
know,
it's
I know.
not that they were just born like with this stuff. It's sort of
Yeah,
mentioned as a way to
it's a,
sophisticate yourself to achieve social mobility.
yeah, it's a social mobility tool. So classical music becomes a easy marker. So
Yeah.
you can mimic the attitudes and you can mimic the behaviors to make yourself pass off as a certain class. The film does kind of
But
communicate that.
the one child policy is just important because this relatively well-to-do family feels a void because they had an opportunity to expand their family but couldn't, and this new person in their lives is to them almost represents a chance to regain what they lost because of the
Yeah.
social policies
Also,
in China.
I mean, the other thing is about the English language. So this other kid actually speaks decent enough English, which seems like a gateway to the Western world.
Another tool of social
Uh,
mobility, yeah,
exactly,
like
exactly.
classical music.
And yeah, and I loved that shot in the film, which is one of the few shots I really loved, where you zoom in to the father. He's carrying the forms for admission to the English language tests, and then you zoom out and you zoom out again, and you can see basically a factory line of
Oh,
parents
okay. Yeah,
with
yeah, yeah.
and on the loudspeaker you have these monotonous announcements in English.
Yeah, yeah, I
English,
remember.
learn English, and you can check, and you can. It's a gateway to a better world.
I thought it was pretty well directed, but just kind of, I don't know, maybe I was tired, maybe I wasn't in the right
No,
headspace for it, but I just didn't think it came together really.
not at
The
all.
main character, the
I,
boy who kind of embeds himself with this family.
I thought it was a
Parts
bit
of
too
his
child.
life are
I thought
oh,
it
I
was a
didn't
bit.
even get that. I just didn't find that ultimately, like, I don't know why so much of his past needed to be shrouded in secret. I mean, I understand why the other characters are supposed to be kept in the dark, but as the audience, I just thought we kind of deserved a little bit more insight, at least toward the end. Like,
Yeah,
okay, fine, there's a an unreliable focal point that makes sense, I guess. Okay, to bring it back to Saltburn, which I don't want to do, but I guess we're just doing it now.
Do it, do it, do it, do it.
we do eventually we do eventually understand Oliver's backstory, and this movie almost felt like it needed a second draft or something, because there are quite a few big events that occur to him that are totally off screen, that happen to characters we never meet. And I found it a curiously narrow film.
Oh yeah, I mean,
And it
uh,
left me quite indifferent. Like, I don't even have much to say about it. I was kind of just left cold and wondering if there's anything beneath the surface.
the film tries to change things up by sort of having some funky shots from the aquarium and looking through the aquarium and looking through
Yeah.
a microscope. What is a microscope? Microscope. Looking through a
A
microscope.
microscape, I don't know, a microscape, like a time, like a model city or something, sort of
Ooh,
landscape of a microscape.
that's
I don't
nice.
know, as
Yeah.
opposed to a macroscape.
So looking through a microscope into how there's certain cells that come together and it's all,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, my
And then there's a time lapse of a highway, and so it's all supposed to sort of like allude to biology, and
yeah.
I guess broadly speaking, it makes sense, but I don't
I
know, the
mean,
movie just never
it's
grabbed me.
it's funky, it's cool, but also not very deep. So it's just like
Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, it's okay. There's some interesting shots from about fencing, which was cool. They practice
Yeah. There's some
fencing
very
with
highly stylized slow motion
stylized
fencing scenes.
stylized fencing with electro pop music at the back in a funk music playing, and I'm just like, oh, okay, I want to stab some people with this music. No, I don't want to actually stab some people. It's just what I thought while I was watching the film. You have weird thoughts when you watch films. It's what happens. And then I was like, okay, cool. And then because I was so scattered, I'm just like, am I thinking about the film anymore? But no, not really. So that was kind of it. But also the main complication of the film was kind of dumb. Main resolution of it, the film. I'm not going to give it away, but the main one
Oh
was like
yeah, yeah,
every, and I was just like, wait, that's it? Is that
yeah.
all? And I'm like, oh, okay.
I think we should honestly. There's nothing else to say about this movie.
No,
Let's move on. Let's be as anticlimactic in our review of the film as the film
yeah,
itself.
because this is not the
What do you
only
want to talk
family.
about next?
We have many other families that went through a lot of trouble in Sundance, so we have to
We can
pick
talk
all
about
of
A
them.
Real Pain.
Ah, yeah, yeah,
That's a family film.
that is a family film.
It's directed by Jesse Eisenberg, coming back to
Oh,
Sundance after
sorry, I thought it
um
was directed by Alexander Payne. Anyway, sorry.
yeah. Okay, I think there's a good pun there that can play on the
Yeah,
title and incorporate Alexander Payne's name.
yeah, it is a real pain indeed. Payne, and it is a real pain, which is and the title itself is a pun already about dual meanings of pain. What is a real pain?
Sure, sure.
So it is a
I
very
think
pun friendly title.
it applies as much to the grating nature of Karen Culkin's character, and it of course talks about generational pain related to the Holocaust. So yeah,
Yeah,
that is
I I,
definitely
I feel like
a
I cannot.
movie that lends itself,
I feel
this
like
title lends itself to multiple interpretations. I mean, yeah, so this is Jesse Eisenberg's follow-up to When You Finish Saving the World, which premiered at Sundance, I think, 2 years ago, but only came out in the US, I think, in 2023. A Real Pain is about two cousins, played by Jesse Eisenberg and Karen Culkin, and they go on a tour of Poland to honor their uh, beloved grandmother who recently passed away. It is relentlessly sappy. I think both of us sort of had the same takeaway that this was Eisenberg's attempt to dispel the perception that he is overly cerebral. And so in this movie, he really leans into some sticky emotions. The film slips into a lot of preachiness. There are moments that just
But that's the
awkwardly
thing.
kind
But
of.
that's the thing. Can you? And part of me is sort of weighing that expectation when you have a subject as the Holocaust, which is weighing at the back of your kind of, it's just kind of looming over the film essentially. Uh, I feel like you kind of do venture into some kind of preachiness. There's no way to avoid it, you know. I don't know.
I'm talking about really like the train scene when you have
Oh yeah,
Kieran Culkin shouting at the rest of the group that they are living these privileged lives, and then he sort of, as he and Eisenberg are kind of like running around. There's
yeah.
this whole like Marxist 101 spiel that
But
does
it's
have a
that.
nice payoff, but in the moment it feels so artificial. And there is a moment that I think that's where the film really lost me. The group photo in front of the monument. When that was happening, I was just like, I'm out. I can't. The movie has a couple of big laughs. It
Yeah,
almost sort of won me back, but I knew as soon as that group photo scene happened, I
I
just
th
knew like I'm not going to love this.
okay. I think the problems with this film are obvious, and Eisenberg kind of admitted. So when Eisenberg was talking about the film and he sent the script around, feedback he got was, "You got to cast Kieran Culkin because the character you've written is basically him from Succession, right?"
Yeah, that's
I
actually the other thing I wanted to say. I hated that Kieran Culkin, he wasn't just doing Roman Roy's animated sort of style of speaking. It was down to the way he was grieving. I mean, there are moments in A Real Pain that you can pull directly from the final season of Succession, when
yeah,
Roman is grieving his father. I mean, beat for beat. And
but also at the same
I
time, on paper, I can see the interesting contrast between Dave and Benji Eisenberg and Culkin's character, someone who really feels from the heart, someone who's such an empath and apparently a very charming personality. I didn't see much charmingness,
Yeah, some of that charm was lost on me, but I knew the
but
in the
we
world
get
of this movie, he was clearly like
he was clearly
charming.
charming. And I could see how that would create a foil to someone else who, really has to keep it together and wants to be seen as charming, but has never got that feedback, and he would feel jealous that this other person always is so effortlessly charming, when in reality he's more effortlessly annoying. That's how I felt. So when Jesse Eisenberg's character keeps complaining, "You are just so effortlessly charming. Have you ever noticed how that makes me feel?" And I'm just like, wait, what kind of warped glasses have you been wearing where this person is just making you feel jealous when he's just been an annoying prick most of the film? Anyway,
But again, it's the way his personality plays in this world, and we see that people do respond to him, and they do brighten up when he
more more
directs
more
his.
people needed to send Kieran Culkin to the back of the train to find more suffering. Because yeah, that
Oh, that was a great line. Yeah. I
go
don't
go.
think you'll find much suffering back there either. I think it's a well-written movie. There's enough witty dialogue in there, but
you
Gidge,
know,
that just reeked of artifice.
Interesting that you brought that up because the moments of the film felt most real to me were the moments that where they're on rooftops or they're in these secret hallways just together and just smoking a joint. And that's when I felt like this film transcended its narrative constraints and its kind of artificial tendencies that it were imposed upon the script to become something which was more organic, and I could actually see their real personalities come out. Real personalities. I don't know what they are, but
Yeah,
it just
all the stuff with the group, with
yeah.
the tour group. Oh, I just, it was
It it wa- it
awful. It
it,
was
it was
awful.
too obvious that everyone was playing a part in the group dynamic.
Unfortunately, this movie did not work for me, even though I love Jesse Eisenberg. I would have taken the cerebral version of this film. I didn't need the shamelessly sentimental one.
And the thing is, Eisenberg has shown that he can. Maybe it's a deliberate choice. Okay, maybe this is the kind of movie he wanted to make, and yeah, I mean, this is the sort of film which will appeal to a certain kind of audience. So I can see the appeal, and even though we didn't like it because we it didn't connect with us in a certain way. I know for a fact that this same film, because of the choices that it makes, is going to connect with a lot of people because of how
Yeah.
easily accessible it becomes. Maybe
Yeah.
too
All the
accessible.
Alexander Payne well, we thought actually we know one Alexander Payne fan who did not like this movie, surprisingly. He felt that this was a less sincere version of Alexander Payne. We feel it's a more sincere version of Alexander Payne, but
Oh yeah,
still too
interesting.
painful to really be successful.
Yeah,
I don't like Alexander
yeah.
Payne much.
I want to clarify why we think it is a more sincere version of Alexander Payne's kind of style. One of the recurring problems I've had with Alexander Payne movies is that characters are not consistent. They do one thing in one scene, and right the next scene they completely contradict themselves and how they've been behaving in the entire film, just for the convenience
My
of plot.
problem with the holdovers in a nutshell.
Yeah, just for convenience of plot. In this film, thankfully, the characters are consistent right from the beginning, right till the end, right from the first scene. Actually, you know pretty much in 2 minutes what Benji is like and what Dave is going to be like, and in fact, that characterization is pretty consistent to the rest of the film. In that sense, it follows the same template of being a bit schmaltzy, a bit too sugary sweet, but with more character consistency. You like Alexander Payne, a real pain is for you. Definitely. You would love this film.
What do you want to talk about next?
Well, I think
Uh, Good one, since we're talking about families still.
yeah. Let's continue with our family
I think
fun.
that's actually the movie we've had the best offline discussions about.
Yeah, a good one is a film by India Donaldson, which is essentially a very simple idea. A 17-year-old Sam goes with their father and the father's best friend to a trip out in the woods. Now, there were two, really big adults and one sort of teenager. And the interesting dynamic here is that the teenager is expected to kind of take on adult duties by kind of helping the adults process a lot of their life problems and sort of, midlife crises, for want of a better word. You think this is a cutesy little premise, but in this cutesy little premise comes this kind of interesting exploration of how boundaries can be crossed when people who are not supposed to be taking on certain roles are forced into situations where they are expected to be adults, and adults who were supposed to be adults kind of behave like children a little bit. So it's an interesting inversion of that dynamic where Sam, who's very accomplished and really smart and a good egg, as the film kind of really make a point, really takes on a lot of adult responsibilities to psychoanalyze these two. Yeah, her dad,
Particularly her father's friend,
father's
who
friend.
recently went through a breakup, has a strained relationship with his son. And even though at first it's sort of playful how he kind of asks her for advice, toward the end you see that there's almost something selfish about what he's doing. He's not being self-aware, self-deprecating.
No,
He's almost really placing this young woman in a position to psychoanalyze him. And then that leads to something not sensational in and of itself, but in the world of this movie, a moment that is quite unsettling.
yeah, and that's something I want to touch upon. A lot of the time, we feel like dramatic moments need to be blown up and they need to be really dramatic for us to have an impact. But I think everything is contextual. We've had this chat offline where, I feel in the world of this film, the kind of surprising and honestly pretty shocking moment that arrives for me was pretty dramatic, and it really
because of the film's otherwise muted tone.
exactly. And in that sense,
Not that this
overall,
was a big scene, like not that this
no,
went big, but just
no,
given how muted the movie is, something even as kind of subtle as this was,
yeah.
yeah.
And I don't want to spoil that because honestly, when it does arrive,
No,
it
of course
does
not.
catch you off guard. So everyone who's
It's the
listening,
climax of the film.
yeah, everyone who's listening, everyone who's watching, honestly, it's a moment that did shock me, and I was just like, "Wait, did that happen?" And had to do a bit of a double take. And when it does happen, it reframes the entire film for me because everything that happens after that is very different. It changes the dynamic between these three people entirely, and it's a very uncomfortable end to the film, which it's kind of like for me. And I was trying to process this, and I use the example of this film was probably like early Kelly Reichardt films in terms of how they start out being very muted. They have, I guess, smaller aspirations than a lot of big dramatic movies, but they're mostly about interplay of dynamics and how crossing boundaries and microaggressions can creep up in the most unsettling of ways and places. And that is the real dramatic kind of push to these kind of films. So I saw a lot of early Kelly Reichardt in this movie, and that felt like we don't make these kind of films anymore. It almost feels like it's a film that's kind of out of its time. It's a film which with kind of muted aspirations, a pretty assured idea of what it wants to do with those ambitions, and the payoff is excellent. So for its aspirations in its world, I think it's a pretty solid film. I was very taken in by it.
I guess I can't say it totally won me over, but that partially because it's such a quiet film
Yeah,
and asking for it to be anything else, it would make it a fundamentally different movie. So I'm happy, I think, that it stayed true to that sedate tone that it
and
establishes at the outset.
in that sedate, muted tone, I have to highlight Lily Collier's performance as Sam.
Incredible.
Oh,
Does so much with her face.
exceptional,
Yeah.
exceptionally expressive face, conveys so much emotion, and in fact,
And intelligence too. Like I had no trouble believing that this adult man, well, both of these men really would kind of look at her as being wise beyond her years.
yes, yes. Okay, you've hit on this. So the central conceit of the film, and this is the film kind of will live or die based on your believability of this conceit. Pam, as a 17-year-old teenager, whether or not you buy the kind of very wise and adult things that she says, will most likely color your perception whether or not you buy into the whole dynamics that play out. Because I had trouble initially believing that this person is way too wise for their age. Like, is this actually? And then you're right. The performance did convince me, and that's the major reason why I could buy into the world of the film. But that's definitely one of my complaints because if you don't buy into that conceit, the film doesn't really work. And that's definitely one of the reasons why you might kind of struggle with what the film is doing. And yeah, there are some other aspects of the film which, from a screenplay point of view, we could have fleshed out some of the beginning a bit more to get to some of the things that are talked about through exposition. Yeah, I think there's a bit too
Also, I
much
just want to
exposition.
mention Lily Colias looks a lot like Carrie Coon. That's all. That's all I wanted to
Oh
say.
yeah, no, no,
Um,
that's a very good comparison. Both very
and I love
expressive,
Carrie
very
Coon,
very
so
expressive
yeah.
faces. Yeah, I can guarantee you, if you love early Kelly Reichardt, you will absolutely adore this film. There's definitely a very clear stamp, especially on that kind of idea that the ambitions of this movie are very much this is the world, this is the muted tone, and I'm going to work within this framework. This is a very Reichartian, uh, Cartesian
I think it
Reichartian.
works. I think it works better than Reichardt-esque. So go for it.
Yeah. Oh, Reichardt. No, I think after Kafka, I think everything is S. We shouldn't. We should
Yeah.
just. Yeah, we should just. No, we know esking things. We now ening things. Reichartian. Esking is out. Ening is in. Heard it here first. Cool. Ricardian kind of tendencies of the film, and I did appreciate that. It's a beautiful film, which I feel like Kelly Reichardt should watch so that she can regain some of the mojo and make a better film. Because oh my God, showing up was bad. Anyway, did you end up watching Girls Will Be Girls? Or no?
No, I missed it. I'm so upset because it won a top prize. You love it so much. I feel like I've failed in some sort of co-host duty by not watching Girls Will Be Girls. But you know what? You saw Girls Will Be Girls. You love it. You reviewed it formally. So why don't you talk
Yeah,
about it?
I feel like I'll just do a quick sort of wrap up of the film because when we're doing muted cinema and sort of muted aspirations, it's a natural segue into this film. The Girls Will Be Girls is a wonderful film by Suchi Talati, who which is basically based on a boarding school set in India, where there was a boys' hostel and a girls' hostel. They all kind of come together, and it's about a coming of age journey of a 16-year-old young woman who lives with her mother. But I think what's interesting about the film is basically this notion of how the boarding school is essentially a microcosm of Indian society. So everything in this boarding school is monitored. It's basically all the women out there. They're told what to wear, what skirt lengths need to be there, what's the appropriate way to dress. Ensure that basically the onus of their dignity is on them and not for the boys being reprimanded for their behavior, which is kind of like a smaller microcosm of how the world operates essentially in that society in terms of women need to take care of their own dignity. And if anything goes wrong, it's the women's fault and not the men who need to kind of reform themselves. So it's an interesting way how the kind of broader psychology plays out in a microcosm of this very small and controlled environment of a boarding school. Within that environment, I think what the film is doing from an interpersonal relationship point of view, it's kind of really asking the question is, can someone really go through a coming of age journey, basically, explore their sexuality and do all the things that are part of the coming of age narrative in a culture which is essentially oppressive of their own existence to begin with? If basically the culture is antithetical to their existence, they're being told what to do, what to wear, how to dress, can you actually really come of age? So this interesting thing is, even though at the same time the daughter is trying to explore, we realize and we see that the mother really never got a chance to do all the things that the daughter is actually doing in a young age. So we have two different generations of women trying to undergo the same journey, but at different stages of their lives. And it really becomes this fascinating interpersonal dynamic story because suddenly the play Girls Will Be Girls, play on words, kind of like on that phrase, is that girls are allowed to act out, aka two different generations of women are allowed to, oh, boys will be boys are allowed to act out, girls will be girls. Girls should also be given the freedom to act out and do stupid things. But obviously one is a mother already bound by expectations and beyond that age of acting out, and one is still in that age of acting out, and they're both behaving very similarly in a society that is frowning upon, definitely frowning upon the mother because she's not allowed to do a lot of those things, but also frowning upon the daughter taking some of the steps as well. So it's an interesting film about, yes, individual versus society, but also two individuals who are sharing the same space because suddenly the daughter becomes jealous of her mom because she feels that the mother is hijacking what seems to be her journey. So it's a very interesting film, which is about trying to see how these two women become competitive with each other in a very interesting way. And it becomes a much more internal film than I was expecting. I think this is one of those films where the 4-3 pillar boxing style really works well because we really see how the lives of both these women are really boxed in. They're literally, quite literally boxed in, and it's claustrophobic, and they want to escape all the kind of rudimentary conditions and impositions that are placed upon them. Beautiful, beautiful performance by both the mother and the daughter. The daughter is Preeti Panigrahi. She won the Best Acting Award as well, the Audience Acting Award, along with Girls Will Be Girls winning the Best Dramatic Film Audience Award as well. So very well
The
deserved
world competition, yeah.
in the world competition. But equally, I think the mother did a fantastic job. And the third wheel in this dynamic is a young boy who comes through. And I won't spoil it, but both women start to vie for his attention. And hence the title
Interesting.
Girls Will Be Girls, because they both want attention from a young, cute
That
little
that
boy.
actually that sounds fascinating because when we were talking about In the Summers, we discussed how affection and resentment can
Yep.
coexist. Also, your description reminds me a little bit of Joyland. Joyland is a movie about how people can simultaneously be a victim and an oppressor. Like there were
Yes.
characters in Joyland who wanted to achieve self-actualization, but that can only come at the expense of someone else's. And
Yes.
it sounds like, this movie is dealing with some similar ideas. I really wanted to watch it. I just didn't have the time.
Honestly, the I will be honest, the only reason I was excited for it because I kind of like to champion Indian cinema. But when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, this is actually really good. Not that I don't
You texted me that you want this to win the world competition, and then it did. And I was very impressed by that call.
it's interesting, and you're absolutely right. It's an interesting way to present that kind of push and pull because you don't often see a mother and a daughter competing for a similar kind of journey. And the way the
Unless it's
film,
The Graduate or something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, and greatest sense of so much uh, happening in the film where I wasn't expecting this kind of, I don't know, it really did surprise me. And I'm very, very happy that I saw it. And I wish it plays at other festivals because, yeah, I think this film can travel really well. It's one of those films where when we talk about female agency and girl power, girl bossing, this is a film that actually looks at the subtle interplay and dynamics of female agency and really does the film justice in terms of the many complicated dynamics that play out because the layers of the complications are very interesting to unpack. And just I think that premise is very cool. You don't often see that, you would put two different generations together in a similar conflict. There's hardly ever a situation that would arise that would put them together in that way. But it was interesting to see that they were acting out and kind of behaving that way. They were competitors in that sense. So it was interesting.
We both watched Handling the Undead, but I think neither of us has anything to say about
No,
it.
yeah. I mean, otherwise
Decently shot,
it was a pretty dead
decently shot.
movie, unfortunately. It was handling the dead, not the undead. My major, I think, takeaway and the reason I wanted to watch it was that it had the same kind of couple as the worst person in the world, not just
Yeah.
the female lead, but
Even though they
also
don't appear on
Axel.
screen together.
Yeah, I mean, why would you do that? Why would you do? Anyway, sorry, but you're right. I
Yeah, I
mean,
thought the
we
movie was pretty atmospheric for a bit, and then it just kind of went nowhere.
also like fair warning to anyone who is watching. The two people who are watching, by the way, I can't do gore horror, so I'm already kind of predisposed to skipping through a lot of those scenes. I try a lot. Trust me, I try a lot, but I can't. And this film was boring on top of me just feeling like this was not my genre. So I really struggled with it. Uh, and yeah, I don't think anything really interesting happens in the film. But you're
Yeah,
right.
we don't need to lose time on it.
Atmospherically, I did appreciate some of the lighting and some of the natural lighting which was used to
Yeah,
convey that. And I think that sort of set the kind of eerie atmosphere, and that was the best thing about it. I was like, oh yeah, this is nice and gothic sensibility to the film, which is interesting. That's about it.
yeah, it is a good looking movie. Okay, so we've talked about now Handling the Undead, Exhibiting Forgiveness in the Summers. I saw Rob Peace, which is
Oh yeah,
directed by Chiwetel Ejiofor. It's his directorial debut. It has a really strong performance from Jay Will as the eponymous character. This kind of felt like an after school special to me, but at the same
Mm,
time, it was sincere. A lot of times in movies, we're sort of told that a character is intelligent, but that's never actually conveyed. Like we're told that a character is like really into science, but then we're just supposed to sort of take that for granted. I did appreciate that in this movie, Rob Peace actually, like, says certain things and discusses science in a fairly substantive way. Rob Peace is about a young man who has this preternatural inclination for the sciences. His father, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, is imprisoned for murder, even though we never quite know whether he's guilty. I think that's actually one of the films that may be the film's emotional through line, how he sort of dedicates his life as he becomes an adult, goes to Yale, gets a great opportunity to maybe be on the front lines of oncology, and he spends it's almost like an extracurricular activity for him. He is trying to get his father released, and there are a couple of points of optimism, but then those quickly dissipate. The emotional through line is his dedication to his father, absent any real knowledge that he's innocent. There is a really emotional scene between him and Ejiofor toward the end, where his father says, like, "You never believed me," and there's like this sense of betrayal there that I found moving. Mary J. Blige plays his mother. She's also strong. Technically speaking, this movie doesn't do anything outstanding, but it worked for me. It all kind of ends during the financial crisis of 2008, as Rob Peace has finally attained some kind of stature in his community and he's able to now give back. But in order to do that, he needs to use his sort of smarts and his know how when it comes to chemistry to sell marijuana. And, this is based on a true story, so I don't think it's too much of a spoiler, but he does ultimately die in a gangland sort of hiff. I think it successfully shows that even really ambitious, intelligent people can just be totally screwed by their social environment. Not a novel thing to show on film, but still a subject worth discussing. I thought Rob Peace was fine, bordering on good.
I think I want to briefly touch on Between the
Yeah,
Temples, because we're talking
which I
about
have not seen.
yeah, because we're talking about films that were good, bordering on great, and I think it improved on me as it
No, no,
went
no, I
along.
said fine, bordering on good.
Ah, okay, okay. This is
So
the
I
thing.
think you might like Between the Temples a little bit more than I like Rob Peace.
There we go. Yeah, I do. It's a solid sort of 3 out of 5 film for me.
And I think you
I
saw it right after A Real Pain, right?
yeah, yeah.
So
It was
you had the Jewish double feature that I just didn't care to buy into.
uh,
You had the Toxic Parent double feature and the Jewish double feature. I just
uh,
had the former.
it's okay. You have the contextual pain that you carry in real life, so I just carry the cinematic pain for you on your behalf. So it's fine.
Oh, right. Yeah, that was so funny. You texted me that I would need to give you some context for all the like Jewiness, and I was just like, dude, I'm like a terrible Jew. The most Jewish thing I've done in like the most
Don't.
Jewish thing I've done in years is watch the Fablemans during Hanukkah with a plate of latkes. Like yeah, I'm not even like an Adam Sandler Jew. Like I'm really out of it. So I would probably miss those references myself.
I don't want to.
Now let's get into the Jewiness of Between the
Yeah.
Temples.
Okay.
We have
The
a few
the
more titles to discuss, and we're
the
already
yeah.
a little bit over an hour.
The reason I was really interested in Between the Temples was because Joanna Arno, my favorite director from the feeling that the time for doing something is past, was thanked in the credits for the film. So I saw this would be interesting, and it is. It's a film obviously by Nate Silver, who's made a lot of other comedies. It's a pretty fast and loose film in terms of how it's set up. It's about a cantor who cannot sing anymore, who kind of is supposed to sing at the Sinai Church, but cannot actually perform his services because he's depressed
What did
ever
you say?
since.
Sinai Church?
Yeah.
Well, there, I guess I'm Jewish enough to tell you that your terminology is wrong.
Oh, there we go.
Synagogue,
Synagogue. There we go.
synagogue, maybe. Yeah.
See, I needed your Jewiness after all. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Sinai Synagogue. There we go. So the Sinai Synagogue, he cannot actually sing. He's lost his ability to sing because his wife died and he's grieving. Pretty depressing start to the film, but
Jason Schwartzman plays him, right?
yes, plays him, and he
Oh
has
wait,
two.
again, he's playing a widower, a grieving widower, after he
Yes,
just got all this praise for playing one in Asteroid City.
yes, yeah. That seems like it's kind of tailored part for him. Uh, and he has two moms. One of them is Dolly De Leon from Triangle of Sadness.
Oh, what?
Yeah,
Oh shit! Now I'm really sad I missed this. I love. I mean, can't say I love Dolly De Leon because I've
uh,
only seen her in that one movie, but
Do-
she's so
uh,
great in Triangle of
she's
Sadness.
so snarky. She's so snarky in this movie. It's lovely. It's so. I'm just like I would hate her if she was my mom. I would literally hate her. So 2 months, very progressive, and grieving widower. And then there's a obviously the rabbi at his synagogue. He wants to set him up with his daughter, played by
Good,
Madeline.
good on you for saying rabbi and not priest.
No, I know that one. Gabby, played by Madeline Weinstein, who was hilarious in this movie. Uh, they're trying to set him up, and clearly he's not interested. And it is such a hilarious kind of setup because he's really interested in is he bumps into Carol Kane, who is actually wants to have a adult bar mitzvah. She's never had one in her life, and now she wants to have one as an adult, who is also an ex-music teacher of
Nice
Jason
little girls
Schwartzman.
will be girls connection there, right? The
Yes,
adult
yes,
kind of, yeah.
yeah. And so, through this journey, uh, Jason is supposed to heal, uh, find himself, and realize that actually he has something to give, and he can sort of, improve someone's life because, frankly, he just feels worthless, and thinks that, basically my wife died, and I don't think I'll amount to anything, and so he gets to deal with his feelings of worthlessness by thinking that he can still add value to someone's life. Uh, but it's mostly treated in a very Hal Ashby kind of style. Think Harold and Maude, very kind of, if you like Hal Ashby, maybe this is the kind of film for you. But also there is a incredible farce sequence at the dinner table, uh, two farce sequences at the dinner table, which is amazing. One with Carol Kane's family who comes around and realizes that she wants to have an adult bat mitzvah, and then how that news is broken. And then at Jason Schwartzman's family, when everyone is sitting at the table, two moms, the rabbi, his daughter Gabby, and then also Carol Kane, and everyone thinks something else is going on, and they play a game of Chinese whispers. Sorry, is it called telephone Chinese whispers? Same game, plays differently, where you whisper something and then something else is supposed to come back, and it is all supposed to mind anything. So, film kind of is pretty fast and loose. I think it's a bit too long. It's 2 hours long. I don't think it needed to be 2 hours. It's a bit too pressing, but it's shot by Sean Price Williams in 16 millimeter, who did the
Oh,
Sweet
he
East.
did. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
So a lot of the
And
film,
he was the uh, remind me, he was the cinematographer on like oh no, I want to say Good Time, but that's wrong.
let me check.
What
No,
is he like?
Golden Exit, Alex Ross Brown.
No, no, he did. He did. He was the DP on Good Time.
Oh yes, he was. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
you're right.
And yeah, I still haven't seen The Sweeties, but I've heard great things about it, his directorial debut.
Yeah. So I think a lot of the film works really well because it has that kind of hazy, frantic, disorientated style, which works well because that's Jason Schwartzman's kind of fragmented state of mind at that point in time, and that really complements. Stylistically, this film is really cool. It's really funny in parts. It improves as it goes along, definitely. Still think it's a bit too long, but yeah, it's a solid film otherwise. I think my initial impression of it was definitely lower, and then I texted you saying, I think this is getting better. I think you should see it. Yeah.
Yeah, it does seem like your opinion on it has improved since you first saw it, which I mean, hey, that's always great. That's usually the mark of an effective
There were a
film.
lot of things I found. I'm not sure if it's true. Apparently, there is something called a J date where, so
Yeah, it's like I don't know this because I'm Jewish. I just know things. And yeah, it's like one of those
I found it
culturally
really,
specific dating apps.
I found it
Also,
really
wait,
fun.
have you seen Funny People,
Yeah,
the Judd Apatow film? Okay, remember um Adam Sandler is speaking with Maggie Siff, who plays Rachel Menken in Mad Men,
yeah.
and she's like talking about the dating scene, and she says, "Yeah, I met him on J Date." He's like, "What's that?" You know, J Date. It's a sort of a dating site for Jewish people, and he's like, "Oh, so it's like a list." I thought Jewish people didn't like being on lists because of the Holocaust. And she looks at him and she's just like, yeah, okay, this has been great. So yeah, I mean, there are reasons to know what J date is because of it's been referenced in other things.
Okay, good to know. Uh, there are just funny throwaway lines which I don't want to spoil. It's just I don't know. It's a funnily written film. I didn't realize there was a J. There's a whole sequence about what's kosher and what's not, which is really funny because it involves food and spitting and things. I know it doesn't work, but it's fun.
I mean, that actually sounds kind of fun. Like honestly,
Yeah.
yeah, you've really gotten me excited for both Girls Will Be Girls and Between the Temples.
So
I didn't know
so
this much about the
the
film before.
the funniest thing about the film is so Jason Schwartzman. His name is Ben Gottlieb, which I think is the most Jewish name ever. If you could like come up with like a phone book and be like, pick the most stereotypical Jewish name, Ben Gottlieb would probably be like number one. So Ben Gottlieb is there, and his dead wife. So Gabby, aka Rabbi's daughter, comes through, and she's because the dead wife is an author and she's a fan of her work. She wants to read
Mm.
her book, and her book is called The Right Kind of Wrong, which seems like exactly the kind of thing somebody in American fiction would write. It's just like contemporary author trying to write, a serious meditation on life, but title it with a serious title to kind of get critical acclaim. So it was funny. And then one of the passages is read out, and it's hilarious. So I don't want to. So yeah, Between the
Okay.
Temples is fun. Rest of the films I kind of just hate or they're just meh. So I think yeah, I can be quick about them. I think I've kind of
Okay.
I've
I think
used up
yeah,
my
we've talked about our like top title,
yeah
not really top, but like the movies we're most sort of interested in discussing. Why
yeah
don't do you have a list of the other movies you saw? Maybe we can both just run through them and
yeah.
then we'll do our
I
faves.
I saw Love Me, which won the Alfred P. Sloan Prize,
Right, right.
which
I didn't
was
see that because I heard it was basically based on the reception, I just thought, oh, this is another foe. Bad minimalist sci-fi with two buzzy stars. In this case, rather than Paul Mescal and Saoirse Ronan, we have Stephen Yeun and Kristen Stewart.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty bad. I agree. So basic premise, it's a love story between a buoy and a satellite in a world where Earth has already been destroyed. So they find videos from Earth, and one of the videos is from an influencer played by Kristen Stewart called Doja Cat, and her partner played by Stephen Yeun. So they pretend to be those people in real life, and that's the love story.
Wait, there's a character named Doja Cat?
Yes.
Okay. I guess it needs to be
And,
seen to be believed.
and the catchphrase is another day, another Doja. That's this person's
So
catchphrase.
far, I haven't heard anything that would make me feel like I missed out on
Great, you didn't, because that was my
anything else.
intention. And a film which was equally bad, but apparently everyone kind of loved it, was also Thelma, which stars June
Hmm.
Squibb, which I also hated because I thought this was kind of stupid and really boring and didn't go anywhere. Because initially it's set up as this thriller where, a 93-year-old woman goes out on a quest to recover her money after she's been scammed. And then it just runs out of steam. And not because she's old. The film just runs out of steam and just doesn't do anything. And I'm just like, what happened there?
Is June
Maybe,
Squibb good in it?
yeah, she's decent, but she doesn't have like much to do. I just felt,
Hmm.
I don't know. The film was caught up in being two different kinds of films. One is like a very fast-paced, pulpy thriller, and the other is this philosophical, contemplative movie about growing old and mortality, facing death, and really accepting that sometimes as an old person, taking help is okay, and it doesn't make you, you shouldn't feel guilty about taking help because you are not able to do certain
Or
things.
we?
Yeah, a week. So I think the film was really caught up in not sure what kind of approach it wanted to take,
Hmm.
and that's okay. But it was just because it's in two worlds. I just was like, pick a lane and stick to it, and drive your scooter through the lane, basically. And
I missed Thelma, unfortunately.
no,
Yeah,
I don't think it was
it's not
anything
that unfortunate.
unfortunate about it. The other film, the only documentary I saw was Ibeline, which I think was really good. Interesting. Just also on a personal note, because
I'm
I
a
think
rube. I didn't watch any documentaries.
no,
Sorry, it's not what I go to festivals for. I get it. It's not like a very sophisticated perspective, but sue me.
yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. It's already acquired by Netflix. It's going to be out on Netflix, I think,
Mhm.
soonish. So I think you'll be able to catch it. But and then the gist of it, it's really beautiful. I think I was talking about this with you offline. I think the beautiful thing about the film is there's a lot of movies about the negative aspects of the internet and the negative side of and the dark side of what the internet can do to you. But I think this film really emphasizes the positive aspect of community building of what the internet can offer. And I think it was very beautiful to see a character with a disability where the film doesn't engage in disability porn and just try to showcase how this person can also add value to other people's lives through community building and how basically they can form positive relationships with each other and question the notion of what contribution to society really means. And I think if this was an American movie and not a European one, you would have had this story framed in a very different way. It would have been framed as a individual pursuit to overcome all odds, and how this individual story of this one person is a very triumphant story. But instead, it really becomes a communal story of accepting other people and all of these kind of misfits who go online and play World of Warcraft and find other people who are also loners and sad and give each other support and hope and actually kind of are just nice people. And then the only other movie that I've got left, which I think both of us gave up on, is Stress Positions. Oh my goodness, what was that?
So let me give our couple of stragglers listeners some context. I was exhausted and gave up on the movie after 20 minutes. I thought
Yeah.
that was just on me. And then Virat told me he gave up after 50. So clearly, like, I wasn't totally off. This movie is, I don't want to, like, I don't feel sort of I have the authority to really discuss it because I turned it off, but wow, those 20, 30 minutes were awful. Like, what the hell is going on? The
Look,
premise seemed so not just contrived, but like weirdly, like just unnecessarily complicated. It- yeah, yeah, no, I was left speechless. I'm like, this is doing a million different things, none successfully. There's this weird plot where it's like a during the pandemic, a guy has to take care of his estranged nephew after his nephew, who is a Moroccan model or something, uh,
nothing made sense. I don't know.
breaks his leg, and so he is this main character played by John Early is hiding him in his basement and not letting any of his friends see them. However, all of his friends are desperate to meet this nephew, and I'm just like, but then at the same time, it becomes like some weird immigrant narrative. Perhaps by the end, all of this comes together, but I just didn't care enough to find out. I turned it off. And then when you told me you did the same, I felt validated in that choice.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can't even say whether this movie was good or bad or whatever. I can't make a judgment because it didn't make any sense to me. And I mean, it begins with this kind of chaotic uh, COVID story in terms of like how so much is happening. Everyone's wearing a mask and chaotic things are happening at the same time. And then with that chaos and then tone, we juxtapose that with this diary reading of this immigrant story of
Yeah,
someone's
yeah. I think
mother that
that's when I was just like, I don't know what's going on. I'm tired. I'm going to sleep. I
I
don't
mean,
care if I
this
miss it.
movie's title is pretty I think spot on because it does kind of give you a lot of stress and puts you in a stressful position. So I mean it's accurate, but maybe not in the way it's intended. So
So I think we can move on from this mishap. Um, Uh, yeah, so I saw Vini Vidi Vici,
oh
which
yeah.
bears some comparison to Saltburn, I guess. I kind of described it while in my head while watching it as Saltburn by way of Ruben Östlund with a little bit of like Yorgos thrown in there, like early Yorgos Lanthimos, like Dogtooth Yorgos Lanthimos. Um, I think it definitely merits comparison to Ostlund because, you know, in his movies, we will usually see two characters trying to speak and there's just something distracting happening, like a crying baby,
Yeah.
a buzzing fly. Of course, in Triangle of Sadness, you have those elevator doors. And in this movie, it's sort of the same thing. Like people are just carrying on and having a conversation. And in the background, there's like some rambunctious kid throwing paper everywhere. Um, I think it's very well directed. I don't know if I liked it though. Again, they're just like so many other films that I saw at Sundance this year, could have used another draft, but I could be wrong. Honestly, like I don't even remember much about the movie, which isn't maybe I watched it at the wrong hour, but like it just didn't. Apart from its visual style, it just didn't stick with me. I think while I was watching it, I was sort of like deleting it from my brain, like just nothing. I didn't retain anything from it. Directorial achievement, though, I was invited to participate in a critics survey for IndieWire,
Ah,
and in my one of the categories is best achievement in directing. and I put Vini Vidi Vici in third, just because again, like it's a very well stylized movie. And I love Ruben Östlund. Maybe not Triangle of Sadness, but I love Force Majeure. Um, I love Dogtooth. Like probably my second favorite Yorgos film. So, you make something that reminds me of those movies and styles. I'll have a kind word to say, but only one. And that's about it. It's well directed. Beyond that, I I wasn't into it. Oh, I
I,
I saw Pony Boy.
oh
Um,
yes,
I mean, I don't have a lot to say on this one either. Dylan O'Brien should just play more Guidos. He's hilarious. Just gross, like licking his fingers while eating lobster, just like total sleazebag. It's a sufficiently entertaining, thrilling crime story. I wish it were grittier. I understand why people might like it. This is it is cool to take this perspective and insert it into a crime thriller, but I don't know, the crime elements I don't think also fully delivered on their potential. It was fine. It was fine.
that's fine. Sometimes fine is the best we can manage, and that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to mention it just because we're doing a comprehensive overview, but really I think if we were just listing like the movies that we had something to say about, I would have left it off. That sort of wrap everything up. I don't
I think we can move on to our
Let's see.
official rankings and performances.
Yeah.
Jake.
There are also, of course, the four films that I saw in person, but I don't want to waste time talking about them. If you want to hear those thoughts, you can check out the vlog. Before we get into our rankings, I just want to, if anyone's interested, here are the acquisitions so far. You can find
Right.
these online if you want, but thought we'd go over them here. Ghostlight was picked up by IFC. This is something about like, I don't know, some adaptation of Romeo and Juliet. The movie isn't an adaptation of Romeo and Juliet. It is about someone adapting it. I don't know. I didn't read much about it. But yes, IFC picked that up. I couldn't find the price of the acquisition though. SPC picked up Kneecap, which is like about an Irish rap group, but it's also it's supposed to be like a parody or maybe even a satirical documentary. Not sure. It's What's Inside that got a lot of buzz after premiering. It's like a bonkers horror comedy that was picked up by Netflix for 17 million. Netflix also picked up two documentaries, Ibelin, which we talked about, and Skywalker's A Love Story. Skywalker's is giving me major Fire of Love vibes. Uh, Warner Discovery picked up Superman, the Christopher Reeve documentary for 15 million. Neon for an undisclosed amount picked up Presence, the Steven Soderbergh movie. Amazon MGM acquired My Old Ass with Aubrey Plaza for 15 million.
Oh
Searchlight
wow.
bought a
Okay.
yeah. Searchlight bought A Real Pain for 10 million. I can see them maybe trying to capitalize on the moment that Kieran Culkin is having, and perhaps they'll campaign him for next year's Oscars. Thelma, your favorite, was picked up by Magnolia. And yeah, I think that's it in terms of acquisitions. So far, the Outrun with Saoirse Ronan, which I did see in person. Again, you can hear my thoughts in the vlog. That movie I don't think has distribution yet, even though Saoirse Ronan is getting like some early Oscar buzz. She's also going to be in Steve McQueen's Blitz. So I don't know. We'll see how that pans out, which film she prioritizes. But the Outrun has Focus features written all over it. I can so easily see Focus picking that up and giving it an awards run just for her performance. I don't think it's a player in any other category, but yeah. So that's that. Still a lot of movies from Sundance 2023 which don't have distribution. I am just waiting for Fairyland with Scoot McNairy and Emilia Jones to finally get released. I thought that could have been an Oscar play for Scoot McNairy this year, but yeah, hasn't come out, which I just don't understand. Anyway, that's that. Let's get into our rankings. Do you want to do performances first? Let's our five favorite performances.
At number 5, I have Madeline Weinstein from Between the Temples. Such a funny performance. So funny. Also because everything else is very dramatic. So it was kind of nice to see a really good comedic performance. Then I've got at number 4, Andre Holland from Exhibiting Forgiveness. Then Lily Colias from Good One. It is a pretty good one, performance-wise as well, not just the film. And now I have cheated because I am a cheater, so you can call me names. In the summers, I could not, for the life of me, pick a favorite performance. So I've done the honorable thing by picking the entire ensemble, the dad and both the daughters, Residente, Sasha Cale, and Leo Mahiel, all three of them from In the Summers, the dad and both the daughters.
Do they play the daughters in the first sequence chapter or in the final one when they're adults?
They're adults. They're adults.
Okay.
So I've picked the dad and the adults versions of the daughters. And finally, I have picked, talking of daughters, the best daughter performance, which is Preeti Panigrahi from Girls Will Be Girls. The Daughter of the Year award goes to Preeti because she is number 1. And also a great performance, not just as a good daughter.
We have some overlap here. In fifth place, I have Andre Holland. Nothing else I can really say that you haven't already. Really communicates a world of pain, and I I really felt for the character. At number 4, I have Sebastian Stan in A Different Man.
I so want to see that film. You've been
Don't
raving
get me.
about it. You've been raving about it.
We
It's
haven't
okay.
gotten to my favorite movies of the festival yet, but
I
yeah,
know.
if you watch the vlog, you will see that I am
I hate you. I
taken
just,
by that movie.
yeah, no, I hate you. It's okay.
And so in third, I also struggled to pick one performance from In the Summers, and I was really just going to do an ensemble kind of mention, but I did settle on one performance in particular, and that is Alison Salinas. She played uh, Ava, the younger daughter, in the middle section. She is
Got
the
it.
one in that shot of
Got it.
the single tear and the drink that she takes. I mean, everyone is so remarkable in that movie, but I guess she in particular, she's so well balanced where the character begins and where she ends up, and that like she still has this affection for her father and she still wants to take care of him, but we slowly see the signs of their estrangement. And I just think like such a beautiful bridge between the character when she's a little girl and an adult. Uh, great work,
Fair enough.
great work. In number 2, I have Lily Colias. We've already sung her praises.
It's a good one. Sorry, it's too
Yeah,
obvious.
I can see that maybe becoming like one of my favorite performances of the year. Again, just so much good acting with her face, with her eyes. Great stuff, great stuff. And my favorite performance of the festival from a movie I saw in person, Kristen Stewart in Love Lies Bleeding.
Ah,
Kristen Stewart is an exceptionally naturalistic actress. I think that that's always sort of been
you mean she's not as good as Doja Cat in Love Me? Oh my goodness. Should have seen the way she should have seen the way she enunciates. Another day, another Doja. I mean, that was classic. That was chef's kiss. Anyway.
I'll have to see it. I guess I just didn't make it a priority because everyone who had seen it didn't have many good things to say about the
Yeah.
film. Um, yeah, so Love Lies Bleeding is this really cool, like retro genre mashup. It's heavily stylized, but Kristen Stewart just always reminds you of like the very human personal stakes at the heart of the story. She is the heart of the story. She was fantastic. She was fucking fantastic. I can't wait to see Love Lies Bleeding again just to appreciate her performance. Like, just tender but tough. I mean, sure, that's a combination we hear about often, but again, all done so naturally in a movie that is taking place in quite the heightened reality, but she just really grounds the proceedings and makes the whole thing kind of sing. She's fucking great. That will definitely be one of my favorite performances of 2024. Okay, let's get into movies. You can go first.
I mean, there's a bit of an overlap with the movies because they're kind of stemming together, but I mean, you can guess. So at number five, I've got Between the Temples, which actually has grown in estimation for me since I first saw it, and I think it's doing something interesting and it's a fun film, even though I think the runtime is a bit too much. I think there's still enough in there which kind of made me feel like this film is going to stay with me for a bit, and it's genuinely funny. At number four, I've got Good One, which I think for India Donaldson for its, we've talked about it at length in terms of its aspirations and its Kelly Reichardt Ian sort of tendencies, and I think it really does really well. Number three, I've got Exhibiting Forgiveness. Number two, In the Summers, the kind of uh, the abusive parent double. Number two, number three. And at number one, my favorite film of the festival was Girls Will Be Girls, which I've spoken quite in depth about already.
Yeah.
So those are my top five. Which
Um, my top five. I wanted to, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna change my number five. Um, I'm gonna make number five Exhibiting Forgiveness.
yes, yeah,
Uh,
I
yeah.
forgive you. I forgive you.
Number four, I have Good One. Again, not a movie I love, but we're just picking five favorites of, out of what the 12, 13 movies we saw. It's a small pool. However, once we get to my top two, those are great movies. I was so fortunate that I got to see these two films and actually do a top five that means something, not just like the five best of the, 13 mediocre movies I saw. I
If I could,
actually have. Yes.
if this hand could extend from the Zoom thing and actually choke you right now, it would. But that's fine. That's because you got to see some really good movies and I didn't. So this is my impression of the claw. Sorry, wait a minute, the
The
crawl.
Iron Claw.
Yeah, yeah, fine. So I was thinking of the claw from Get Smart, but okay, the Iron Claw looks good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm just lucky that I actually have an immense amount of passion for my at the very least my number one movie, which anyway. Number five, Exhibiting Forgiveness. Number four, Good One. Number three, Love Lies Bleeding. A really fun, colorful, vibrant film that, I think I'm going to watch a few more times. I think A24 has a major hit on its hands.
surprise,
Number
surprise.
two, sorry.
That surprise, surprise. A24 has another hit on its hands. Ooh.
I mean, they've had clunkers in the past. Number two, I have In the Summers, which I've already revealed. I wonder like who could pick that up? Who could give that like a nice, I don't think it's a Searchlight title. I don't know. Apple? Maybe Apple can do something with it. Maybe
Yeah,
Focus. It's not an A24 movie. It's not really a neon movie.
Apple picked up
Um,
Cha-Cha Real Smooth, right? It could do.
yes, yes,
It
and
could do.
Coda, of course. Um, okay, and then my number one movie, if you've
Let me
already seen
guess.
my,
It's Richard Linklater's Hitman. No,
are you
it's
being? I didn't see it, man.
well,
I
may-
unfortunately did not.
maybe you see a different
But
man. You saw a different man instead.
yeah, yeah, that's the pun at the end of my vlog. You totally spoiled it. No, my number one movie of the festival. What I mean, if it doesn't end up in my top three at the end of this year, we're in for a hell of a great year. It's A Different Man. This movie's fucking amazing. When I first saw it, I was like wowed by it, and I gave it 4.5 out of 5. This might be a 5-star movie. I haven't stopped thinking about it. I want to watch it a million more times to just like absorb those images. This movie's amazing. If you want to hear my fuller thoughts, you can check out the vlog. But yeah, I think this movie would have been my favorite of 2023 had it come out then. Like, holy fucking shit. This movie is great. I'm so lucky I got to see it. I can't wait for A24 to release it. Wow. Like, here's the thing, if you watch the vlog, which I recorded, like my reaction to that movie, I recorded, what's it been? 2 week? Wow, a week. What's wrong with me? Right? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
only been a week. Um, a week ago when I recorded my reaction, I was also speechless and just going, wow, it's so great. Wow, unbelievable. And that's still that's still the only way I can react to this movie now. Like it is so fucking good. Um, yeah. So that's that.
Yeah. So that is Sundance. We watch movies, so we dance. No, we think, so we dance. We think, so we Sundance. Sorry, I'm gonna try to be a
Is this
Cartesian
a
fun.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, is this a play on Descartes or something?
Yeah.
I
Well, it's
Sundance, therefore I am.
yes. There we go. You got it right. Well, it could have been a day card, except it's a night card for me because it's past here I am. If you've survived till the end, congratulations. I mean, we're so happy to have you guys here. We'll be bringing you coverage throughout other festivals that come in, but also general titles and news that drop in as we go. Uh, this is, we're so
Yeah,
happy
we'll
to,
be talking about South by Southwest in Berlin soon, even though
yep,
neither of us is attending, but you know, you don't
you
need
know,
festivals are just fun to talk about.
exactly. So a lot of news coming through, so keep joining us. If you enjoyed this, do spread the word. If you think my humor is bad, don't tell me. If you think my humor is great, do drop in a comment. Big
If you think Virat's humor is bad, fuck you. Don't watch us. Don't change, Virat. Never change.
I mean, I'm on the internet. I mean, I guess I have to develop a thick skin eventually. We're going to be around. We'll be doing a lot of more movie discussions. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on the ride. And it's been real. It's been fun. It's been Sundancey. Good night.